Before we begin, let me ask you something. Have you ever stood at a crossroads in life, not knowing whether to keep going, turn back, or simply stop? Ever wondered if a small choice, a simple word, or even a silent act of kindness could actually change everything? This isn't a podcast about grand heroes or perfect lives. It's about the quiet lessons hidden in everyday moments. Stories passed down through generations. Stories whispered by the wise, lived by the humble. And, if you're willing to listen, stories that just might shift something in you. You won't need a notebook. You won't need answers. All you need is a little stillness and an open heart. Because sometimes a single story is enough to plant a seed. And who knows? Maybe one of these will be the one that helps you grow in a new direction. So, sit back. Let's begin. The power of virtue over fate. Let me tell you a story passed down through generations. A story that reminds us of the incredible power of kindness, honesty, and integrity. There's an old saying, virtue can overcome destiny. It means that those who live kindly and do good deeds can change even the most unfortunate fate. This is a truth tested time and time again, especially in the life of a man named Lin Dangjiang during the Qing dynasty in Taiwan. Lin was a kind and honest man, respected by his neighbors. But one day, he was falsely accused by a corrupt official and thrown into prison. His wife, desperate to save him, sold everything they owned, down to selling their own children, just to gather 40 taels of silver to pay his bail. But tragedy struck again. On her way to the authorities, the silver vanished. Gone. Just like that. Now, picture this. An old beggar, crippled and worn by life, finds the bag of silver. His name was Ziliang. He's holding more money than he's ever seen. And yet, he doesn't keep it. He sits by the roadside, waiting, knowing someone must be in deep despair. Soon, Lin's wife returns, eyes scanning frantically. Ziliang approaches, asks a few questions, then hands her the entire bag. She is overwhelmed with gratitude, but rushes to the magistrate. The official, touched by the couple's hardship and amazed by the beggar's honesty, releases Lin immediately, free of charge. Lin and his wife reunite, recover their children, and start a small hardware shop. Business flourishes, and every day they pray for their Savior and help those in need, because they knew what it was like to be helpless. Now back to Ziliang. That night, he sleeps in a temple and dreams of two golden armored spirits. One grabs him, the other pulls his legs, and he wakes up screaming in pain. But in the morning, he finds something unimaginable. His legs are healed. For the first time in years, he can walk again. He leaves begging behind, carries water for a living, and lives humbly, but joyfully. Years pass. One day, by sheer coincidence, he walks past Lin's shop. Lin's wife recognizes him but hesitates. He's no longer crippled. Still, her heart tells her it's him. She runs after him, confirms it, and soon both she and her husband are bowing before him in tears. They insist he live with them, and from that day on, he has a home, good food, clothes, and a place in their family. Later, when Lin and his wife return to their ancestral home, they leave everything, the shop, the wealth, to Ziliangsi. He uses a portion of it to donate to hospitals, helping the sick who can't afford care. A beggar once crippled by life, now a beacon of generosity. So what's the lesson here? It's simple. When you choose kindness over greed, when you do good without expecting anything in return, the universe listens. Even destiny, seemingly fixed, can shift. Even heaven responds. This story is a tribute to the idea that virtue, no matter how quiet or humble, is never wasted. And that, my friend, is how virtue overcomes fate. The butchered pig and the power of keeping your word. Let me take you back to ancient China, where a great philosopher once walked the earth, Tang Tu, a student of Confucius, and a man deeply committed to moral integrity. He wasn't just a thinker, he was a father. And this story, perhaps more than any philosophy, shows what kind of man he truly was. One morning, Tang Tu's wife was headed to the market. Their little boy, still young and wide-eyed, cried and tugged at her clothes, begging to go with her. She smiled, gently knelt down, and said, "Sweetheart, stay home. When I get back, I'll butcher a pig for you." It was meant to calm him, just a casual promise to soothe a child's heart. But when she returned, her husband met her at the door, not with anger, but with resolve. "We need to butcher the pig," he said simply. Startled, she shook her head. "I was just joking. You don't really think I meant that, do you?" Tang Tu looked into her eyes and said words that would echo for generations. Children don't understand jokes. They believe what we say. If we lie to them, they'll learn to lie. If we don't keep our word, they'll learn promises mean nothing. And with that, he followed through. They butchered the pig. Now, to modern ears, this might seem a bit much, but stay with me. Because what Tang Tu was really teaching his son wasn't about pigs or meat. He was teaching him something far more valuable: trust. He was teaching him that a promise matters. That truth is not a small thing, but the foundation of every relationship. We live in a time where words come easy. Promises are made in passing. But children, they absorb it all. They learn not from what we say, but from what we do. Every parent is their child's first teacher. If we break our word, we teach them to doubt. If we keep it, we show them the meaning of integrity. It starts small. "I'll be there after work. We'll play later. You can trust me." But to a child, these aren't just words. They are bricks, building blocks of character, of trust, of self-worth. And when those bricks are solid, that child becomes someone who believes in truth, who stands by their word, even when it's hard. Tang Tu didn't care about the cost of a pig. He cared about raising a man, because someday his son would grow up and face a world filled with lies, shortcuts, and compromise. But he'd remember that once, when he was just a boy, his parents kept a promise, even when it seemed small. And in that moment, he'd know what kind of man to be. So what's the lesson? Honor your word, especially to your children, because to them, your word is the world. Story 3, The Lesson of the Monkey and the Gift of Patience. There was once a young monk living in a quiet mountain monastery. He was bright, maybe too bright for his own good. Proud of his mind and quick with his words, he often lost patience with his fellow students. If someone didn't understand his point, he'd sigh, roll his eyes, and blurt out, "Why can't you get it? Are you a pig?" His master had warned him many times. Wisdom without kindness is no wisdom at all. But he didn't listen. That is, until one day, everything changed, thanks to a monkey. It was a sunny morning when the young monk went up the mountain to gather firewood. Feeling cheerful, he stacked a hefty bundle and sat by a stream to rest. Just then a little monkey, one he'd seen many times before, came bounding up, playful as ever. The monk pointed to his towel lying on the firewood and motioned for the monkey to bring it to him. The monkey stared blankly, then grabbed a log instead. The monk laughed. "No, not that. The towel." He tried again, and again. Each time the monkey proudly brought him more wood. And still the monk smiled. Later, he told his master about the incident, finding it amusing. But the master looked at him and asked, "When your brothers fail to understand something, you call them names. But when a monkey fails, you laugh." "Why?" "Because," the monk said, "it's just a monkey." The master nodded slowly. "Ah. So when someone is beneath you, it's easy to forgive them. But when they are your equal, or worse, when you see them as competition, you lose your compassion." Then came the deeper truth. "Real wisdom," said the master, "is not in what you know. It's in how you treat others, especially those who struggle. A truly wise person sees the world through the eyes of patience and treats all beings with gentleness, whether they are a monk or a monkey." And the young monk, in that moment, bowed his head, not in shame, but in understanding. Story 4. Overripe Pears and the Sweetness of Grace. In old Shanghai, near the end of the Qing dynasty, there was a small fruit shop owned by a family named Wu. One summer, they received a shipment of pears from far-off Shandong, but the journey had been long and rough. Most of the pears arrived bruised, too ripe, almost spoiled. They couldn't sell them, so they tossed them out. Across the street lived a poor couple. That day, with nothing to eat, they noticed the discarded pears. Curious, they took them home, peeled the bad parts away, and discovered something magical. The fruit, though soft, was incredibly sweet. That gave them an idea. They sliced the pears, added sugar, and sold them as a sweet treat. One slice, 5 coins. The neighbors loved it. Soon, they were buying up all the overripe fruit they could find and turning it into delicious pear candy. Business grew, then exploded. Their little treats reached the palace, where even the Empress Dowager tried them and loved them. But not everyone was happy. The Wu family, the original fruit sellers, watched in jealousy. One night, they pasted a mocking sign on the candy shop's door. "Tianji Dao, heaven knows." The candy shop owners saw it the next morning, but instead of taking offense, they smiled. "Perfect," the husband said. "Let's name our shop Tianji Dao. Heaven knows our hearts are good." Soon, that sign became a brand. Customers came not only for the taste, but for the meaning behind it. The Wu family tried again, this time drawing a black turtle with its head pulled in, a symbol of shame. But once again, the candy couple turned it around. "A turtle lives long," they said. "Let this turtle be our new logo, pear candy for a long life." What's the lesson? When people throw shade, plant a tree, turn insults into insight. When others act out of jealousy, let it remind you to act out of grace. Because success doesn't come just from talent. It comes from the ability to turn bitterness into sweetness and enemies into teachers. Story 5. The Leap of Faith. Long ago in India, a man turned his back on the world and joined a monastery. He wanted to escape the chaos of life, its pain, its pleasure, and its constant craving. He wore the robe, he chanted the prayers, but his heart, still trapped in desire, he still longed for comfort, rubbed oils on his skin, bathed in hot water, and clung to soft blankets at night. On the outside, he was a monk. On the inside, just a man struggling with himself. Then one day, he traveled far to meet a wise sage, a master named Upagupta. "I've come to seek your guidance," he said. "Teach me the way to freedom." The sage studied him, saw the chains of attachment still wrapped around him, and said, "First, you must trust me completely. Will you obey everything I ask?" The man nodded. "Yes." "Then follow me." The sage led him deep into the mountains. There, he created a tall tree with his mystical powers and said, "Climb it." The man obeyed. "Now let go of your feet," the sage said. Trembling, he did. "Now let go of one hand." Sweating, he complied. Now the other. "Wait!" the man shouted. "If I let go, I'll die." "You promised to trust me," the sage reminded. Heart pounding, the man closed his eyes and released. He fell. Then, nothing. He opened his eyes. The tree was gone. The cliff, gone. The fall, an illusion. The sage stood before him and asked, "In that moment of letting go, did anything in the world still matter to you?" "No," the man whispered. "Not wealth, not pride, not even life." "Then now," said the sage, "you are ready. Because only when we let go, fully, fearlessly, can we be free. Only when we stop clinging to what is temporary do we touch what is eternal. Sometimes, to gain everything, you must first let go of everything. Story 6. The Delay of Grace. There was once a traveler, weary and sunburned, making his way along a dusty road. As he approached a riverbank, he spotted an old woman struggling to cross. Without hesitation, he waded into the water and helped carry her across. Her steps were shaky, her eyes downcast. And when they reached the other side, she said nothing. Not a word. Not even a nod. The man watched her walk away in silence. His heart sank. How ungrateful, he thought. Why did I even bother? Hours passed. The road stretched on, and fatigue began to press heavy on him. He had no food, no strength left in his legs. Just when he thought he couldn't go on, someone appeared. A young man on horseback. "Sir," he said, "thank you for helping my grandmother earlier today. She asked me to bring this to you." He handed the traveler a sack of food and the reins to a strong, healthy horse. In that moment, the traveler realized something profound. Gratitude doesn't always come when we expect it, but it always comes when it should. You see, life is like shouting into a canyon. The echo doesn't come back right away. But wait, and it will return. Stronger, deeper, clearer. When you do good, don't look over your shoulder for applause. Sometimes the rewards take time. Sometimes they don't come from the person you helped, but the universe always finds a way to circle back. So be kind, not for the reward, but because it's right. Story 7. The Eyes Can Lie. 2 angels once descended to earth in the form of weary travelers. On their first night, they knocked on the door of a wealthy home. The owner, cold and stingy, let them sleep in the damp basement. No food, no warmth. That night, the older angel noticed a crack in the wall and used his powers to seal it shut. The younger angel asked, "Why help someone so heartless?" The elder replied, "Not everything is what it seems." The next night, they stayed at a poor farmer's house. Though the couple had little, they shared everything: their food, their bed, even their smiles. But in the morning, their only cow, life's only source of income, was dead. The young angel was furious. "Why didn't you save their cow? They were kind." Again, the elder said, "Not everything is what it seems." Then he explained, "In the rich man's wall was a hidden stash of gold. I sealed it to protect him from greed, but he'll never know. Last night, the angel of death came for the farmer's wife. I offered him the cow instead." What's the lesson? What we see is not always the full truth. The world moves in deeper rhythms. Some losses are protection. Some gains are distractions. Be slow to judge. Be quick to trust in something greater than appearances, because in this life, the kind may suffer, but they are never forgotten. Story 8. A Mother's Lesson in Silence. In ancient China, during the Song dynasty, there was a young scholar named Wu Xia. He was intelligent and ambitious, but not yet wise. One day, while chatting with a guest, he casually criticized someone who wasn't present. His mother overheard the conversation. After the guest left, she summoned him. And then, without a word, she beat him. 100 lashes. Their relatives rushed in. Why punish him so harshly? He was only pointing out someone's flaws. Isn't that what scholars do? But the mother's eyes filled with tears. She said, "I'm not raising a clever speaker. I'm raising a righteous man. If he speaks ill of others behind their backs, he will lose the trust of men and the blessing of heaven." She refused to eat for days. Her silence spoke louder than any argument. Wu Xi never forgot. He grew up to be one of the most respected moral thinkers of his time. Not because he had many words, but because he knew which words not to speak. So here's the truth. Your words shape your destiny. What you see, how you speak of others, even when they're not around, it all reflects the kind of person you are. Speak with honor, speak with restraint, and when in doubt, say nothing. Because silence, at times, is the greatest wisdom of all. Story 9. The Man Who Forgot Everything and Found Peace in the Land of Song. There once lived a man who forgot. Not just a name, not just a date, but everything. He would give someone a gift in the morning, and by afternoon, he'd forgotten. He'd eat lunch and ask where his food was minutes later. He would leave the house and forget why, return home and forget where he'd been. His family was heartbroken. They tried medicine, prayers, healers. Nothing worked. Then a wise man came from a distant land. He said, "Let me try." So he stripped the man of comfort, took away his food, his light, his clothes. The man began to beg, to speak, to move, and little by little, memory returned. 7 days passed, and suddenly the man remembered everything: his family, his past, his regrets, his fears. And he hated it. He shouted, cursed, cried. "When I forgot I was free," he said, "I didn't worry. I didn't ache. I didn't remember all the pain I've lived. Now, I'm chained again by memory." What's the lesson? Sometimes, remembering everything isn't a gift. It's a burden. Peace is not in knowing more, but in holding less. In letting go of pain, of regret, of comparison. Sometimes, a little forgetting, a little space in the heart is what makes room for joy. Story 10. The Price of Greed. During the spring and autumn period, there lived a man named Wu Fuk. He envied his wealthy friends and decided to try his hand at business. His brother-in-law suggested a plan: sell lacquer, a prized material. Wu Fuk worked hard for years, grew a beautiful lacquer grove, and prepared to sell the precious sap in a nearby kingdom. But then temptation knocked. His brother-in-law whispered, "You can double your profit. Just add fake sap made from boiled leaves. No one will notice." And so he did. At first, the buyers were thrilled. The price agreed. The barrels sealed. But greed is sloppy. In his rush to cheat, Wu Fuk left a trace. Barrels unsealed, resin mismatched. The buyers grew suspicious, walked away, and never returned. Days passed. The real lacquer spoiled. The fake was worthless. His fortune vanished. In the end, Wu Fuk died hungry on the streets, remembered only as a liar. Greed doesn't just ruin business, it ruins trust. And once trust is gone, no amount of cleverness can win it back. Be honest. Build slow. Build right. Because shortcuts often lead straight off a cliff. Story 11. The Man Who Saved a Village by Being Good. In a dry, dusty village in northern India, people lived hard. Crops failed. Bellies were empty. Desperation hung in the air like smoke. One day, a delivery truck full of canned food crashed outside the village. The driver was injured and taken to a hospital, leaving the truck unattended. The villagers, starving, took the food. Then came a dark idea. "If we dig holes in the road," someone said, "more trucks will crash. More food will come." And so they did. At first, they stole in silence, then in groups, then with weapons. The road became dangerous. No law could stop them. But one day, a young driver passed through, carrying sacks of white powder, industrial starch, not food. The villagers stole it, believing it was edible. The driver pleaded, "Please, don't eat that. It's poison." They laughed. So the young man fell to his knees. "I don't care if you take my goods. I'll go home with nothing. But don't eat this. It will kill you." His tears were real. His voice broke. Someone decided to test it. fed a handful to a chicken. The bird died within minutes. The villagers froze. They returned every bag. And from that day on, no one stole again. What police and punishment couldn't do, one man's compassion did. Kindness, when sincere, can change hearts more than fear ever could. Sometimes the most powerful act isn't fighting back, it's caring, even for those who wrong you. Story 12, The Fire That Passed Over a Good Heart. It was the 49th year of the Qianlong era, and fires had become almost routine in Jinan, a city in China's Shandong province. Every few weeks, flames would rage through neighborhoods like angry storms. One evening, the fire broke out again, this time on West Street. Fueled by fierce winds, it leapt from rooftop to rooftop, threatening to consume everything. In a small wooden home, a man named Zhang lived with his wife, children, and the thing he cherished most, the coffin of his recently departed mother. As the flames crept closer, the family had one chance to escape, but Zhang refused to leave. "I won't abandon my mother, even in death," he said. His wife and children agreed. "We'll die together if we must, but we'll not let her burn alone." When soldiers came to rescue them, they tossed down ropes from the rooftop, but Zhang and his family waved them away. The fire reached the street, then the alley, and then something strange happened. A sudden gust of wind swept the flames north, skipping over their house entirely. Everything else around it burned. When the fire died down, the house of the Zhang family stood untouched. Neighbors called it a miracle. But perhaps it wasn't. Perhaps when love is so deep and loyalty so pure, even nature steps aside. In a world of logic and reason, there's still room for the unexplainable, for grace, for the reward of unwavering heart. Story 13, The Houseboy Who Hid the Knife. Thai Kwituk, a respected scholar, once had a sharp, quick-witted houseboy. The young man was efficient, clever, and always eager to please. So Kwituk trusted him. Then one day, tragedy struck. His 2 young sons were found dead. His wife, overcome with grief or guilt, hung herself soon after. It didn't make sense. There were no signs, no warnings. Only whispers. Kwituk's mother overheard something strange, rumors that the wife had tried to poison her husband, but their children ate the food instead. That perhaps she had an affair and regretted everything too late. Still, there was no proof. The house fell into mourning. Years passed. After the houseboy died of illness, a friend of Kwituk approached him quietly. "I must tell you something," he said. "That servant you trusted, he wasn't who you thought. He stole from you. He delayed your journeys. He played games with your time. Perhaps he played with your fate." Kwituk lowered his head. "I thought I saw clearly," he whispered, "but I was blind." The lesson? Not everyone who smiles is your friend, and not everyone who warns you is your enemy. Trust, but verify. And never confuse cleverness with character. Story 14, A Son Born, a Legacy Lost. There was a man, a former official, who retired to the mountains after years of public service. He lived simply, reading books, sipping tea, and tending his garden. There was only one sorrow. He had no son. Late in life, his prayers were answered. His wife bore him a son, and the old man poured all his hope into the child. He believed fate had finally favored him, but as the boy grew, he became wild, arrogant, wasteful. He squandered wealth, mocked tradition, and brought shame to the family name. In time, the once noble household fell into ruin. Relatives starved. Ancestors went without incense. The villagers asked, "How could this happen to such a virtuous man?" But those who knew him longer whispered differently. "He lived modestly," they said, "but where did his wealth come from so quickly during his official years? Were his hands really clean? Maybe fate knew what the world did not, because no title, no image, no robe of silk can hide truth from the heavens. You can fool the crowd, but not the sky. Legacy isn't built in public, it's carved in private by the things you do when no one's watching." Story 15. The boss who sat down with his staff one afternoon, the owner of a hotel, was walking through the halls when he noticed something odd. The staff dining room was unusually quiet. Curious, he opened the door, and there they were. Several housekeepers, crouched around a table, hurriedly eating scraps of food left over from guests' plates. When they saw him, time froze. Some dropped their chopsticks, others lowered their heads in shame. No one spoke. And then, something unexpected happened. The boss walked over, picked up a pair of chopsticks, smiled, and sat down. "Looks good," he said. "Mind if I join?" The room, heavy with guilt just seconds ago, filled with laughter. They ate together, like people, not ranks. That day, he didn't give a speech, or issue warnings, or ask for explanations. What he gave them was something far more powerful. He gave them dignity, and that's something no money or bonus can ever buy. Leadership isn't about reminding people who's in charge. It's about reminding them that they matter. Story 16. The Empty Lunchbox. There was a skinny little boy who came to school every day with a plastic lunchbox. At noon, just like clockwork, he'd quietly walk out of the classroom, pretending to go to the bathroom. In truth, he had nothing to eat. His family was poor. That lunchbox? Always empty. Instead of facing his classmates, he drank water to silence the hunger in his belly. But one day, everything changed. He came back from the hall, sat down, opened his box, and stared. Inside were pieces of bread, some fruit, a bit of rice, and a boiled egg. Not much, but enough to bring tears to his eyes. He looked around the room. Everyone was chatting, eating, laughing, as if nothing had happened. He never found out exactly who filled his box that day, or the day after, or the day after that. But someone, or several someones, had seen his silent struggle, and without saying a word, they acted. Helping others doesn't need applause. Real kindness protects people's pride while easing their pain. These children weren't just kind, they were wise. Wise beyond their years, because real compassion doesn't shout, it simply shows up. Story 17, The Boy and the Betrayed Birds. Every morning, a young boy would visit the town square with a bag of seeds. He'd whistle gently, and a cloud of white doves would descend, landing on his arms, shoulders, even his head. He loved them, and they loved him back. Until one day, his art teacher asked him to bring one of the doves to school. "We're painting birds this week," the teacher said. "It will be beautiful." The boy agreed. He brought a little dove, gentle and pure white, to the classroom. His classmates drew it. Some laughed, some stared in wonder. After class, He released it back into the square. But the next day, something strange happened. No doves came. Not one. He whistled. He waited. He begged. But they stayed away. That one act, taking a bird from the sky, had broken the trust he'd spent months building. Though the bird had returned, the others sensed the betrayal, and so they left. Even with love, even with the purest of hearts, trust, once broken, isn't easily repaired. Whether it's friendship, family, or love, loyalty is delicate, and once it's lost, words alone won't bring it back. So honor the trust others place in you, because sometimes even doves don't come back. Story 18, The Jealous Wife and the Master's Apple. There was once a woman who could not let go of her jealousy. Day after day, she lived in fear, afraid that her husband, who had become successful and charming over the years, would fall in love with someone else. She never found proof, but doubt poisoned her heart. So one day, she went to visit a wise monk. Tearfully, she said, "I gave him everything when he had nothing, but now he's admired by others. I can't sleep. I can't trust. My heart won't rest." The monk said nothing at first. Then he reached for a ripe apple and handed it to her. "Bite it," he said. She did. Then he took it back, cut it in half, and pointed to the seeds. "See these?" he said. "Every apple has a core. Bitterness, doubt, pain. These are the seeds of every relationship. But if you focus only on the core, you'll never taste the sweetness of the fruit." She looked down. "Do you love him?" the monk asked. She nodded. "Then love without clinging, trust without chains. If love is real, it grows stronger when it's free." Jealousy isn't proof of love. It's fear wearing love's mask. To truly love someone is to give them wings, not a cage. Story 19, The Proud Monk and the Empty Hall. There was a monk who had studied scriptures for years. He could recite entire texts by heart. His words were flawless, his tone commanding. But no one listened. Each time he delivered a sermon, the hall was nearly empty. Frustrated, he went to the head abbot and asked, "Why do people not come to hear me? I speak the truth." The abbot smiled and said, "Come with me." He led him to the monastery kitchen, where a humble cook was serving food. Around the cook stood dozens of monks, laughing, talking, feeling at ease. The abbot whispered, "You speak with pride. He serves with heart." Then he asked the monk, "Do you want to be heard, or do you want to be felt?" Truth is not in the words alone. It's in how you carry them. People don't remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel. Story 20, The Two Seeds. Two seeds lay side by side in the soil. One said, "It's time. I want to sprout, grow roots, push through the earth, and reach for the sun." The other said, "It's dangerous. If I grow roots, they might get damaged. If I rise up, I'll face wind and storms. I'd rather stay here where it's safe." So the first seed grew into a tall, beautiful plant. It danced in the sunlight. Bees came. Flowers bloomed. And the second seed? It stayed underground. And one day, it was eaten by a bird. The lesson? Growth is risky, but hiding is riskier. If you don't bloom, you may never be broken, but you'll also never be alive. Life is not about avoiding the fall, it's about learning to rise. Story 21. The Candle and the Mirror. In a quiet temple tucked deep in the mountains, a disciple once asked his master, "Why do people who shine bright often feel lonely?" The master didn't answer with words. Instead, he lit a small candle and placed it in front of a mirror. "Look," he said. The flame danced quietly. Its light reflected endlessly in the mirror, bright and alone in the room. "Sometimes," the master whispered, "when you become light for others, you must first walk through your own darkness. The candle does not complain that it stands alone. It simply shines." Then he smiled. "Do not chase crowds. Chase clarity. Because those who light the way often walk it first, alone, but never without purpose." Story 22. The Wise Man and the Empty Cup. A young man, full of opinions and pride, traveled across the land to meet a great master. "I've read hundreds of books," the man said. "I know philosophy, science, strategy, but I still feel lost. Teach me what you know." The master nodded, then poured tea into a small cup in front of him. He kept pouring and pouring until the tea spilled over. "Stop!" the man shouted. "It's overflowing." The master looked at him and said gently, "Exactly. You are like this cup, full of your own beliefs, your own noise. There is no space left for anything new. If you want to receive wisdom, you must first empty your cup." Humility is not about lowering yourself, it's about making space. Story 23. The Whisper in the Crowd. There was once a child born with a quiet voice and a stutter. At school, kids laughed when he spoke. Teachers told him to be quiet because he took too long to finish a sentence. So he stopped talking. Years passed. He grew into a young man who spoke rarely and only in whispers. One day, during a storm, a young girl got trapped under a collapsed fence near the village square. Dozens of people stood around, arguing about what to do. He stepped forward. His voice cracked. It trembled, but it cut through the noise. "Lift the wood together." Something about the calm in his whisper, despite the storm, made people listen. They followed, and they saved the girl. That day, someone said, "He may not speak loudly, but when he does, people follow." And from then on, the village listened more closely when the quiet ones spoke. Because leadership isn't volume, it's vision. And sometimes, the softest voice is the one that moves mountains. Story 20. The Emperor's Broken Bowl. Once, there was a powerful emperor who owned a priceless jade bowl. It had been passed down for generations, flawless, shining, perfect. One day, while showing it to guests, it slipped from his hands and shattered on the floor. The room froze. Everyone waited for his rage. But the emperor bent down, picked up the shards, and said calmly, "It served me well, even broken. It holds beauty." Later, he ordered a craftsman to piece it back together, not to hide the cracks, but to fill them with gold. From that day forward, the bowl became even more precious. This story later inspired the Japanese art of kintsugi, the practice of repairing broken pottery with gold, to celebrate the flaw as part of the story, not something to be ashamed of. You are not ruined by your scars. You are made more beautiful by how you carry them. Story 25. The Three Gates. A man came running to the philosopher Socrates one day. "Do you know what I just heard about your friend?" he asked. Socrates held up his hand and said, "Wait, before you tell me, let's run it through the three gates." "The three gates?" the man asked. "Yes," Socrates said. "First, is it true? Are you absolutely sure what you're about to say is true?" The man paused. "No, I just heard it from someone else." "Second, is it good? Is what you're about to say something kind or uplifting?" The man shook his head. "And third," Socrates continued, "is it useful? Will it help me or my friend in some meaningful way?" The man hesitated again. "Not really." "Then," Socrates smiled, "why tell me at all? Words are powerful. Use them like a sculptor uses a chisel, carefully, with purpose, never to destroy. If what you say isn't true, kind, or useful, maybe it's better left unsaid. Story 20 is the bamboo and the oak. In a deep forest, an ancient oak tree stood tall and proud, its trunk wide, its branches reaching the sky. Nearby, a small bamboo plant swayed gently in the wind. One day, a great storm came. The oak stood strong until it didn't. A loud crack, and it split in two, crashing to the ground. But the bamboo? It bent. It swayed. It danced with the wind and stood standing when the storm passed. Later, a traveler walking through the forest saw the broken oak and whispered, "Strength is not just about standing tall. Sometimes it's about learning to bend." Life will test you. Winds will come. When they do, don't fight the storm. Flow with it. True strength is flexibility, grace, resilience. Like the bamboo, you may bend, but you won't break. Story 27. The Two Wolves. An old Cherokee elder once sat down with his grandson. "There's a battle inside me," he said, "a terrible fight between two wolves. One is anger, envy, greed, arrogance, resentment. The other is joy, peace, kindness, humility, love, and hope." The boy asked, "Which one wins?" The elder looked him in the eye and said softly, "The one you feed." Every day we are choosing which wolf gets stronger, not with big decisions, but with small ones. How we speak, how we forgive, how we think of others. Feed wisely. Story 28. The Window and the Sick Man. In a hospital room, two men lay side by side. One man's bed was near the window, the other could only stare at the ceiling. Each day, the man near the window would describe what he saw: trees dancing in the wind, a lake that shimmered in the sunlight, children playing, lovers walking by. The other man listened, eyes closed, imagining the world outside through the stories. One morning, the bed by the window was empty. The man had passed away in the night. The remaining patient asked to be moved by the window, but when the nurses opened the curtains, he was stunned. There was no lake, no trees, no children, just a blank brick wall. He later learned the man had been blind. He hadn't described what he saw. He described what he hoped the other man could feel. That's the power of kindness, to paint beauty where there is none, and give hope where there is only pain. Story 29. The Farmer's Luck. There was once a poor farmer who owned a single horse. One day the horse ran away. His neighbors cried, "What bad luck!" The farmer simply said, "Maybe." A week later, the horse returned, bringing with it 3 wild horses. "Such good luck!" the neighbors exclaimed. "Maybe," said the farmer. His son tried to tame one of the horses but was thrown off and broke his leg. "Such misfortune," they said. The farmer again replied, "Maybe." A few days later, soldiers came to the village to draft young men for war, but they skipped his injured son. The neighbors said, "How lucky." The farmer smiled, "Maybe." The point? Life is never as clear as we want it to be. Don't rush to label something as good or bad. Often, the full picture takes time. Let life unfold.